Hello everybody, welcome to my channel.
Benedict Cumberbatch. From baby to 41 years old, Benedict Cumberbatch's journey from a thoughtful, artistic child in London to one of the most intriguing actors of his generation is a story shaped by discipline, curiosity, and an unmistakable screen presence. By the time he reached 41, Cumberbatch had already built a career that stretched from prestige theatre to blockbuster franchises, all while cultivating a reputation for intelligence, precision, and emotional depth. Early life. A quiet, observant child, 1976 to 1990s, born on July 19, 1976, in London, Benedict Timothy Carlton Cumberbatch arrived in a household where performance was practically part of the family DNA. His parents, actors Timothy Carlton and Wanda Ventham, nurtured his creative side but also encouraged him to pursue strong academics. Even as a baby and toddler, family friends often described him as calm, watchful, and unusually expressive. Cumberbatch spent his early years attending boarding schools, including Brambletye and Harrow. At Harrow, he discovered his first real taste of performance, playing roles in Shakespeare plays that hinted at the emotional clarity and vocal control he would later become known for. Teachers frequently noted how naturally he slipped into complex characters, showing a maturity many of his peers hadn't yet developed. Finding his calling. Acting training and first steps, 1990s to 2000s, Cumberbatch's path to acting wasn't immediate. After finishing school, he spent a year teaching English in a Tibetan monastery, an experience that broadened his worldview and deepened his introspective nature. When he returned to the UK, he committed fully to drama, training at the University of Manchester and later at the London Academy of Music and Dramatic Art, LAMDA. By his mid-20s, he was already gaining traction on stage and British television. His early roles in productions like Hawking and Amazing Grace showed a performer unafraid of emotional intensity and intellectual complexity. Breakthrough. Becoming a global name, 2010 to 2015, everything changed in 2010 with Sherlock. His portrayal of Sherlock Holmes redefined modern detective storytelling and launched Cumberbatch into international stardom. His performance balanced razor-sharp intelligence with fragile humanity, turning him into a cultural icon almost overnight. During these years, he tackled a range of projects that revealed his remarkable versatility. He played Stephen Hawking, Vincent van Gogh, and even a dragon, lending his voice and motion capture to Smaug in The Hobbit. He joined large-scale films such as Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, Warhorse, and Star Trek Into Darkness, demonstrating his ability to adapt to both intimate drama and massive blockbuster productions. The rise of a leading actor, 2015 to 41 years old, by the time Cumberbatch turned 41 in July 2017. He had become one of Hollywood's most respected performers. A major milestone in this period was his role as Alan Turing in The Imitation Game, which earned him an Academy Award nomination for Best Actor. His nuanced portrayal of Turing showcased his talent for embodying brilliance, vulnerability, and internal conflict. At 40, he stepped into one of his most famous roles, Doctor Strange in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The combination of mysticism, arrogance, and moral evolution fit his acting style perfectly, making him a key figure in the franchise. Off-screen, Cumberbatch had married theatre director Sophie Hunter and welcomed children, balancing family life with demanding work schedules. His public image by 41 was that of a thoughtful, grounded performer who managed fame with grace and a bit of playful charm. Legacy by 41. By the time Benedict Cumberbatch reached 41, he had already become a household name across continents, starred in one of the most acclaimed TV series of the decade, joined one of the world's biggest film franchises, earned an Oscar nomination, built a reputation for intellectual, emotionally rich performances, remained deeply committed to humanitarian causes and artistic integrity. His evolution from an observant, artistic child to a commanding, globally recognized actor is a testament to the power of dedication, curiosity, and fearlessness in craft. Continued. Benedict Cumberbatch, the making of a modern icon, sharpening his craft, stage, screen, and everything between. One of the most defining aspects of Cumberbatch's artistic journey was his dedication to the theatre. Even after becoming a recognizable face on television and in film, he continually returned to the stage. Productions like Frankenstein, directed by Danny Boyle, became cultural events. The dual casting gimmick, where he alternated between Drive, Frankenstein and The Creature with Johnny Lee Miller, set the theater world buzzing. His creature was raw, childlike, and unsettling. His Frankenstein was cold, calculating, and tormented. Critics praised his emotional precision, and the production reinforced something essential about Cumberbatch. He approached every role like a problem to be solved, a mystery to decode. A reputation built on versatility. Cumberbatch at 41 wasn't simply the Sherlock actor. He was the kind of performer directors trusted with layered, difficult characters. He had a rare ability to communicate intelligence without condescension, vulnerability without melodrama, and intensity without excess. That's why you saw him taking on roles such as a conflicted plantation owner in 12 Years a Slave, a British spy caught in Cold War tensions in The Courier, a troubled rancher in The Power of the Dog, though released later. Scripts and development during this era were already in motion. He was the kind of actor who elevated every project by treating each character as a full human being rather than a set of traits. The turning point, The Imitation Game and the Oscar spotlight. Although Sherlock made him a global sensation, The Imitation Game made him an actor taken seriously on the awards circuit. His Alan Turing was a masterclass in restraint. Rather than leaning into caricature, Cumberbatch portrayed Turing with a quiet loneliness that lingered long after the credits. Critics called it one of the most hauntingly humane performances of the decade. This role put him in conversations previously reserved for stalwart dramatic actors. By 41, he wasn't simply participating in Hollywood, he had become a cornerstone of it. Finding balance, marriage, parenthood, and personal growth. Cumberbatch's personal life during his mid-30s to early 40s was defined by changes that grounded him. His marriage to Sophie Hunter in 2015 wasn't a celebrity spectacle. It reflected his preference for privacy and stability. The arrival of their children deepened that shift. Friends and collaborators described a subtle transformation in him. He was still driven, thoughtful, and intellectually restless, but his priorities were clearer. Parenthood brought a sense of stillness and deeper emotional reach to his performances. There was a new warmth in interviews, a new softness in how he talked about the craft, a bit more humor, a bit more perspective. Fame no longer defined him, it was simply part of the job. Doctor Strange in the blockbuster era. Marvel's decision to cast Cumberbatch as Dr. Stephen Strange wasn't random. They needed someone who could convincingly play a man whose arrogance is matched only by his brilliance. And Cumberbatch brought that and more. What made the role work so well for him? He understood the character's spiritual journey. He blended aloof intelligence with subtle vulnerability. His theatrical precision enhanced the mystical, otherworldly vibe. His physical commitment to the role added believability. By the time he reached 41, the MCU had become a major part of his career identity, but not in a limiting way. It gave him global reach and mainstream recognition while still allowing him to pursue quieter, more intimate roles between blockbusters. Public image at 41. Brilliant but relatable despite his prestige, Cumberbatch's charm lay in how unpolished he sometimes appeared outside of roles. He had a knack for self-deprecating humor. His interviews bounced between philosophical musings, nervous laughter, and witty quips. He wasn't aloof. He wasn't unapproachable. He came across as a deeply curious person who enjoyed talking about everything from quantum physics to children's books. This relatability made him a fan favorite across generations. Philanthropy and advocacy alongside his acting, Cumberbatch consistently used his platform to support social issues. He advocated for refugee rights, arts education, LGBTQ+ equality, and scientific literacy. None of it was performative. He had a quiet, earnest style of activism that aligned with the thoughtful seriousness people associated with him. Even before turning 41, he had already become a respected public figure not just for his talent but for his principles. Where he stood at 41. By age 41, Benedict Cumberbatch embodied a rare balance: international star power, artistic credibility, personal maturity, and grounded approach to fame. He was still rising, still exploring new creative challenges, but already had a legacy others only dream of. He wasn't just a star, he was an actor who made audiences think, feel, and stay curious about what he would do next. Continued. Benedict Cumberbatch, a deeper look at his evolution to age 41, childhood personality and early influences. Cumberbatch wasn't allowed look at me type of kid. People who knew him as a child often described him as thoughtful, quietly imaginative, and surprisingly perceptive. Growing up with actor parents didn't immediately push him into performing, but it absolutely gave him access to creative energy. He spent weekends watching rehearsals, visiting sets, and absorbing the backstage rituals of theater and television. Even as a young boy, he had a fascination with language. He loved reading, mimicking accents, and studying how people communicated. Those skills later became signatures of his acting style. He once joked in interviews that he had the face of a Victorian ghost child, and honestly, casting directors must have agreed. Because many of his early roles required a kind of intellectual intensity that kids usually can't pull off. Harrow years, embers of a performer. Harrow, with its rigorous academics and strong arts culture, gave Cumberbatch the push he didn't know he needed. He studied drama, appeared in Shakespeare productions, and began developing his trademark voice: controlled, powerful, resonant. A teacher famously called him the best schoolboy actor he had ever worked with, which is wild considering Harrow's long history. During these years, he also cultivated his love for visual arts and rugby. He wasn't one-dimensional, he had layers even then. That ability to balance intellectual curiosity with emotional sensitivity became one of his superpowers. The gap year in Tibet, a defining experience before fully committing to acting. Cumberbatch stepped away from the familiar. His year teaching English at a Tibetan monastery wasn't a wealthy student vacation. It was real immersion. He lived simply, taught monks, learned about Buddhist philosophy, and absorbed an entirely different worldview. This experience shaped his calm demeanor, his reflective personality, his sense of empathy, his interest in spirituality. You see hints of this in roles like Doctor Strange and Sherlock. Characters whose journeys involve self-understanding and transformation. Lambda and professional discipline. Lambda polished everything he already had going for him. His training there cemented his professional habits: rigorous preparation, vocal control techniques, physical transformation, and emotional truthfulness. Teachers noted his intensity, but also his willingness to be wrong, learn deeply, and push himself. This is where he developed the chameleon quality we see in his work. He wasn't satisfied with being recognizable in every role. He wanted to disappear into them. Early career. Climbing without flash before his big breakthroughs, Cumberbatch built a reputation on consistent, disciplined work. He appeared in theater productions that demanded stamina, radio dramas that showcased his voice, BBC roles that required emotional nuance, historical pieces that leaned on authenticity. His performance in Hawking, 2004, was the first real spotlight moment. It displayed his ability to inhabit a complex mind while conveying vulnerability and humanity. It also hinted that he had the rare capacity to play real people without imitation becoming parody. Growing recognition and the Sherlock explosion. By the early 2010s, Cumberbatch was already respected, but Sherlock catapulted him into a different universe. The show's brilliance wasn't only in its writing or modernization. It was in the performance. Cumberbatch shaped Sherlock into something fierce and fragile at the same time. He portrayed genius as both a gift and a burden. He became instantly iconic. The coat, the hair, the sharp speech, the emotional walls, the lightning speed deductions. Fans weren't just watching Sherlock Holmes. They were watching Cumberbatch break the mold of what a detective character could be. The Cumberbatch phenomenon. Around this time, something funny happened. He became a pop culture obsession. People adored his mannerisms, his voice, his expressions, and even his unusual name. He inspired memes, devoted fans, and endless admiration. Cumberbatch handled all this attention with a mix of humor and humility. He didn't take the hype too seriously, which made people love him even more. A career defined by range and courage. Between his late 30s and early 40s, he didn't stick to one genre. He bounced from prestige drama to sci-fi to historical pieces to Marvel blockbusters. He wasn't chasing fame, he was exploring the full spectrum of storytelling. He tackled roles that tested him. The villainous Khan in Star Trek Into Darkness, the moral conflict in Tinker Tailor Soldier Spy, the emotional devastation in 12 Years a Slave, the spiritual and physical evolution in Dr. Strange, the brilliant but wounded Alan Turing in The Imitation Game. Each character demanded something different from him. And he delivered every time. Settling into himself. Personal life and maturity. Cumberbatch in his 40s wasn't the same as his 20s or 30s. Fame didn't inflate him. If anything, it sharpened his desire for privacy and deep connection. His marriage to Sophie Hunter balanced him. Their children anchored him. People close to him often say that fatherhood softened him in the best way. It gave his performances more emotional resonance, especially in roles that dealt with parenthood, loneliness, or vulnerability. Where he stood at 41, a fully formed artist at 41, Benedict Cumberbatch wasn't just successful, he was respected, admired, trusted. He was considered one of the strongest actors of his generation, capable of carrying massive films or delivering quiet, intimate performances that linger in the mind. His legacy up to 41 included starring in globally beloved TV, anchoring major film franchises, earning prestigious award nominations, commanding the stage with unmatched intensity, inspiring a worldwide fan community. Balancing art with empathy and advocacy. He reached 41 not as someone trying to arrive, but as someone who had fully arrived and still had room to grow. Continued. Benedict Cumberbatch, a life shaped by curiosity, craft, and character building. A distinct acting identity. By the time Cumberbatch was working steadily in his late 20s and early 30s, he had already begun carving out a very specific type of screen presence. Casting directors recognized certain traits. A cerebral energy, deep emotional restraint that hides quiet turmoil, an ability to portray misunderstood geniuses, a voice that could make a grocery list sound like Shakespeare even when he wasn't the lead. He stood out. He had that gravity, the ability to pull attention toward him without doing anything flashy. This quality followed him into later work, becoming one of his artistic signatures. The voice, a tool and a trademark. Cumberbatch's voice became famous almost as quickly as his face. It was rich, textured, and highly controlled, but more importantly, he used it intentionally. He understood how to shift pitch and cadence to create psychological meaning.
Bye bye. Thanks for watching. Bye.